Hey, in this video, we're going to be talking about order of operations. This is from Unit 1, Lesson 1 of our pre-algebra course. So if you are one of my students, welcome to our first video together. If you are not one of my students and you are interested in becoming one or interested in what else we offer, you can head on to emberlearninglabs.com. So in this video, we're going to be talking about order of operations, OOP for short. Now, if you've learned about order of operations before, you may have learned PEMDAS, right? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. If you haven't learned any of those, then that's probably better for this video in a lot of ways, because we're going to truncate or shorten that down to the last three kind of bullets on there. And I said the last three bullets. That's not like division, addition, subtraction. And we'll dive in and see what I mean by that here in a second, because we're going to dive into three steps, and we're going to hopefully expel some potential misunderstandings that you and other people may have, and all of that. Let's dive in and take a look at these order of operations. We're going to look at examples of these at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around so you can understand. If you're one of my students, you should be taking notes anyway, right? So in here, we're going to list three steps in doing math. So when we're doing math, the first thing we want to take care of are the grouping symbols. Grouping, G-R-O-U-P-I-N-G, grouping symbols. Right? And when we're talking about grouping symbols, we're talking about things like parentheses, things like, I don't know why I decided to include these all of a sudden, but things like curly braces would be grouping symbols. Usually we use those in a more specialized context, so we're not going to see those much in this class, at least not for a long time, if at all. But the two most common that we're going to see are parentheses and then, of course, square brackets. Right? So those are things that are grouping symbols. So what do we mean by grouping symbols? We'll put some more meat on this when we look at examples, but we're talking about we do things inside the grouping symbols first, and we do those from inside out. So if we had these parentheses here and then we had these brackets here, we would first do everything inside of here, and then we would take care of anything out in the brackets. We go inside out on grouping symbols. Okay, so that's how we work those. Then the next step in order of math, order of operations, is we do multiplication and division. It's really important to understand multiplication. Sorry, I'm trying to talk and write at the same time. A-T-I-O-N. Multiplication and division. The important thing to understand here is that these are on the same step, and that's really important. If you learned, or somebody taught you order of operations before, and you learned PEMDAS, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. Right? But if you learn PEMDAS, you might think that you do multiplication and then you do division. Well, that's not quite correct. Multiplication and division are, in fact, on the same step. Now, so and the only trick with that is if we have more than one multiplication division, we tackle those left to right. Okay? So we do the leftmost multiplication or division, then we do the next one, and so on until we've done all of the multiplication or division. So multiplication doesn't always come before division. They're on the same step. Right? So our number 3 step, our last one we're going to be talking about, like I said, there's more steps up there to be continued in Algebra 1 and other places, but for right now, for our purposes in pre-algebra, these are the 3 we're looking at. The third and final step is any addition and subtraction we're talking about. Addition and subtraction. So any addition and subtraction in the problem. Now again, just like in multiplication and division, we're going to tackle those left to right. And that's really important. Okay. Again, addition and subtraction are on the same step. Addition, we're going to learn later once we learn about positives and negatives, and then once we learn about kind of some more details about how fractions work, we'll learn that multiplication and division are actually the same thing, and addition and subtraction are actually the same thing. So not only are they on the same step, but they're actually the same thing. But that's to be continued. Don't let that confuse you now. For now, this is the order we do math. So let's dive into some examples and put some meat on the bones here, right? So let's do some examples. Do examples in a different color so we can identify those real easy. So example 1. We're going to learn really soon about positives and negatives, so don't worry about some of the signs in here. Just kind of take my word for it. We're going to bring it down. We're not going to end up with any negative answers yet. That's soon, forthcoming soon. So example 1 is going to be 20 minus 3 times 5. Okay, so if we walk down those 3 steps, we look for grouping symbols. There aren't any grouping symbols, so we're going to start instead with this multiplication step. Now, don't worry about this negative here. We'll learn how to tackle that in a minute. For now, let's just think about 3 times 5, right? So what is 3 times 5? Well, 3 times 5 is 15. Now, if you're one of my students, and even if you're not really, I want your work to look just like this. It needs to be really neat and draw right straight down the page, right? So we want to make sure and bring that minus down. Again, we're going to kind of learn some more. We're going to put some more meat on that in later lessons. We're going to make sure and bring that minus down. And then we only have one operation left, so we don't even have to think about order of operations. It's just 20 minus 15. And what is 20 minus 15? Well, it's 5. That's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Right? No problemo. Okay, so let's do another example. Example number 2. Example number 2 is going to be 30 divided by 5 times 3. So we walk down our 3 steps. We look for grouping symbols. There are none. So multiplication, division. Well, there's both. There's division and multiplication. Which one do we do first? Now, this is where it might get a little confusing, because some people would think that you would want to do this multiplication step first, but that would actually be incorrect, because, again, I know I keep saying the same things over and over again, but I want to make sure and hammer some of these things in our brain. That way we don't forget what's going on and we understand later. Okay, so what multiplication and division are on that same line, that same step. And so we're going to actually do this division step first. So what is 30 divided by 5? 30 divided by 5 is 6, right? And then we're going to bring down the times 3. So what are we going to do next? Well, we've only got one thing to do, so we don't even have to think about it. What's 6 times 3? We might have to think about that. If we do, then make sure you're working on memorizing your multiplication facts. It'll help you out a lot. Okay, so 6 times 3 is, in fact, 18, right? 6 times 3 is 18. All right, so there's a couple of examples. We're going to do a few more. Let's dive into an example number 3 here. Okay, example number 3 is 4. Now we're going to put a parentheses there. Oh no, it's not going to be too bad. Don't stress. We got this, right? Times, and then 10 minus 7, and then plus 2 times 3. Now, this might be, sorry, I kind of wrote that a little bit close. That's my bad. I'll try to pay a little closer attention in the future, right? So this might be new here, and so I want to take a half a second to make sure that you understand what's written here, because if you've not seen this before, like I said, this might be new, and so I want to make sure you understand that. Sorry, I got distracted by text from my mother. This dot right here means multiplication. And so if you have not seen that, if you have a dot floating in the air like that. Not a dot down here because that's something else, right? But if you've got a dot floating up there in the middle, that means multiplication. Another thing that means multiplication in this problem that you might not have seen yet is if you have a number right next to a parentheses, that also means multiplication. I need to turn this off here. Being distracted in group texts and things. My life happens just like your life happens. That's how we roll around here. Okay, so if we got a number right next to a parentheses, that also means multiplication. So we've got a couple of possibly new ways to write multiplication. Most everybody's seen this way, but I want to take a minute to make sure we understand that at this point in time. So now that we've got that little housekeeping bit out of the way, let's walk through this. So if we walk through our steps, we start with grouping symbols. This time, we've got grouping symbols. I don't know, if I'm looking down here, I could be looking up there. Your problem is up there. So, oh no, my hand's gone. It's up there somewhere. So anyway, hey, we do have grouping symbols. So remember what I said about how to do grouping symbols. So what you do is you take care of what's inside of them first. So 10 minus 7. That's easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? What's 10 minus 7? Well, that's 3. So we're going to put 4, and then we're going to put 3, and then we're going to bring down what we haven't touched, and we're going to kind of get used to some of those ideas in our brain. Those are going to be really important as we do equations and all that kind of stuff. Bring down what you haven't touched. Make sure you are doing all these things. Buy recycled paper if you want to. Most paper is recycled these days. Anyway, paper's cheap. Use it. It'll make your life better. So now we look at what's next. So we look for grouping symbols. Now, I know there's still parentheses there, but that's not really a grouping symbol because everything inside of it is already taken care of. So what that is actually multiplication, right? So there aren't any grouping symbols anymore. So multiplication, division. Well, we've got 2 bits of multiplication. We work those from left to right. So 4 times 3 is, I'm going to underline what we're doing. That way we can see what we did as I save this out later. So 4 times 3 is 12. We bring down that plus, bring down what we haven't touched, right? 2 times 3 is 6. Easy peasy. Now there's only one thing. 12 plus 6 is 18. That's no problem, no big deal. So that was a little step up. I think I'm going to clear my screen here and give myself a little bit more room. Use my virtual paper here. So let me clear off my screen and make some more room for example number 4. Example number 4, we're going to do 5. We're going to do some square brackets. Dun, dun, dun. All right, and then we're going to put 11 minus, and then we're going to put parentheses. And inside that parentheses, we're going to put 7 plus 5. And then outside of these parentheses, we're going to put divided by 4. We got all kinds of stuff happening. I don't know how many of you have seen Jurassic Park, but as Samuel L. Jackson says in Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts. So we got all kinds of things happening here. All kinds of things happening, right? And so how are we? That's not where the problem is. The problem is up there. There it is. Dinner's ready, he says. I'll be there in a minute. Okay. That's what happens when you record videos from home. Sometimes life interrupts. It's going to be okay. Sorry. So we're going to work parentheses, grouping symbols, right? And we're going to work those from inside to the outside. So we find the innermost grouping symbol, and we take care of that first. So the first thing we're going to do is going to take care of this 7 plus 5 because that's the inside-most grouping symbol. So we're going to bring down what we haven't touched. 5 times, remember, 5 times a number right next to a grouping symbol is multiplication. So 5 times 11 minus 7 plus 5 is, sorry, I had a brain fart. What is that? That's 12. Sorry. Thinking about too many things at once. Divided by 4. Okay. Now, we still have grouping symbols, and we still have stuffs inside of the grouping symbol. So we got to deal with all that first. Okay, so we've got a subtraction and we've got a division. what comes next? So we've got grouping symbols, multiplication, division, and then we've got addition, subtraction. So the division is the second step in there. So we're going to deal with that. Now, I know grouping symbols are first, and so this might be a little bit twisty-turdy and whatever else, but we deal with what's inside the grouping symbols, and then we kind of start over on that hierarchy, right? So inside the parentheses, inside the square brackets, multiplication, division would go next. So 12 divided by 4. 12 divided by 4 is, of course, 3. Put that bracket right there. Going to bring down our minus. Bring down our 11, this other bracket right there, and bring down our 5. We're just kind of chunking it on down. Now, we still got stuff inside grouping symbols, so we still got to deal with that. So we're going to do 11 minus 3. That's the only thing in there, so that's definitely the next thing we're going to do. So what's 11 minus 3? 11 minus 3 is 8. Okay, we're going to bring down the 5. Now, all we have left is 5 bracket 8. I know I've said it about 3 times at this point, but we keep repeating things. It's going to get stuck in our mind palace, holes, caves, something. Whatever lives in our brain, this math is going to get stuck in there. So we got 5 times 8 because we got a number next to a grouping symbol. 5 times 8 is, of course, 40. All right. Now, before we quit, we need to do one more example because this last example is just a little bit sneaky. And so it's really going to be rather important that we take a look at it. I'm going to clear my screen so there's less distractions on the page. This is going to be our example 5. This is going to be the last one we talk about in this video. Okay, so we're going to have 60 minus 15, all of that over fractions. It doesn't really mean fractions. It really means division on this problem. It's going to be okay. 60 minus 15 all over 2 plus 7. Now, this one is a little bit tricksy because if you heard what I was just whispering, fractions are the same as division. We're going to dive a lot into that the more we hit fractions. So would we do the division first? And if so, which one will we do? Divide and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to kind of talk about this in 2 different ways. One is this way, is we can kind of rewrite this thing over here as 60 minus 15 divided by 2 plus 7, right? Because all of this, and you can kind of see that. Now, if this is confusing, don't stress it. If this is super confusing, then you can think about it the way I'm going to describe it second. So if this is like, oh my gosh, then just kind of zone out for half a second till I come back over here to this blue part, right? So all of this, 60 minus 15 is divided by 2 plus 7. So this is really a grouping symbol part. So that's why this goes before that division. It's kind of grouped up there. So another way you can think about this when we've got these big old fractions is before you can do the division, this is not really official order of operations language, but you can kind of think of it as it being stuck up there in the numerator and the stuff being kind of stuck down there in the denominator. So we got to kind of unstuck it first. Right? So either way of thinking about it as kind of getting it unstuck and simplifying the numerator and simplifying the denominator, or if you think about it as separate grouping symbol things, either way, we're going to do what's in the numerator first and then what's in the denominator. So 60 minus 15, if you didn't know, is in fact 45. So we've got 45 in the numerator now. Right? And then 2 plus 7, that one's easy peasy lemon squeezy. That's 9. Now, I said before, and so this is kind of like that dot and the number next to grouping symbols. We won't always take so long in these videos with some of these minutia things, but you never know when someone's coming to these videos or to this class what they've learned and what they haven't. So I like to take the time to go into all these little detail bits. So a fraction here is the same as division. Right? So this is actually 45 divided by 9. Now, if you know your 9s, that's easy peasy. Memorize your multiplication facts. 45 divided by 9 is 5. So that's the end of that problem. You can look on website and stuff if you're in my class for homework assignments and all of those things. If you are joining us just on YouTube, remember that we are offering these videos to you guys, basically entire courses worth of math videos for free on YouTube. So we would really appreciate if you just do one simple thing, and that is hit the subscribe button and hit the like button on this video. It helps us out a little bit and we really enjoy being able to provide some of this content for free. If you'd like to see what else we have going, you can check out emberlearninglabs.com. Love to connect with you. Thanks for watching and enjoying this video together.